Hey guys, Nish Quick here. So, I've been getting more and more interested in UX for games. And what's that, you may ask? Well, UX stands for User Experience, and that is paramount when it comes to games. Like the YouTuber Design Doc says, user experience incorporates graphic design, which in turn involves menus, user interfaces, camera work, color choice, font, animation, character design, and things like that. Developers usually build mechanics and incorporate design into games that make the game a seamless, enjoyable, and memorable experience for the player. This can include and isn't limited to designing a proper HUD or heads-up display, introducing game mechanics in an easy-to-understand way, or giving the player different ways to accommodate to their level of comfort. A usability expert by the name of Jakob Nielsen created 10 usability heuristics for designers to follow. These are primarily used when designing apps, websites, and other pieces of technology, but can be used when analyzing games as well. They're basically rules of thumbs for designers to follow when designing and looking out for things when testing out the product. Today, I'm going to be doing a usability heuristics evaluation of one of my favorite games of all time, Persona 5. I chose this game since I played it pretty recently and has some great design choices and philosophies. So stick with me through this video, maybe you'll learn something new, and maybe you'll want to play this amazing game by the end of this video. Before we get started, I want to introduce the heuristics to you. They are visibility of system status, match between system and the real world, user control and freedom, consistency and standards, error prevention, recognition rather than recall, flexibility and efficiency of use, aesthetic and minimalist design, diagnosing errors, and finally help and documentation. So there's 10 of them. Also, when I analyze each heuristic, I will give it a score based on how well it is utilized within the game. It will either be a pass, fair, or fail. Just wanted to get those rules out of the way before we start. Also, just a reminder, if you enjoy these videos I make about gaming, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel Nish Quick Pops for more content like this. And without further ado, let's get started. Heuristic number 1, visibility of system status. When users know the current system status, they learn the outcome of their prior interactions and determine next steps. Predictable interactions create trust in the product as well as the brand. Nielsen Norman Group. Persona 5 is a calendar-based game, meaning you play out each day from the beginning of April all the way until around January, and this is longer for the re-release Persona 5 Royal. If you've seen footage of the game, you've probably seen the date and time of day and weather status on the top left of the screen. This allows you to plan your day depending on which one of your friends is available to hang out with you, if you want to explore mementos to grind on a rainy or pollen-heavy day. Some say this is a major eyesore and distraction, but once it's gone, players can easily forget the day and time within seconds and would need an ever-present reminder of what they can do. Also, once a new quest starts, your time limit is shown on the top right. It shows how many days are left for you and your teammates to explore a palace, send a calling card, and fight the boss of that palace. This wasn't present in Persona 4, and I'm glad it's in Persona 5. In Persona 4, you have to check the weather reports constantly to plan out when you go into the TV world to finish off a dungeon, with no visible reminder of when the last day is. The final thing I'll be talking about for this heuristic is the feedback when battling other personas in the metaverse. When you land a hit that is weak to an enemy, the game tells you have hit the enemy weakness. And for future uses of that skill on that same enemy, the weak status is given to you while choosing that same skill or a skill of that same element. Also, when you've inflicted a persona with a status ailment, you're notified which skills can land technical hits, such as physical attacks to a frozen enemy. I'm going to give this heuristic a pass for its great reminders of system status and ability for players to predict and plan future outcomes in the heat of battle. Heuristic number 2. Match between system and the real world. When a design's controls follow real-world conventions and correspond to desired outcomes called natural mapping, it's easier for users to learn and remember how the interface works. This helps to build an experience that feels intuitive. Nielsen Norman Group. This heuristic is interesting. You see, Persona 5 takes place in modern-day Tokyo, with some fictional locations, but majority of the places you visit in the overworld are real-life locations like Shibuya, Shinjuku, Jinbocho, Akihabara, etc. To make you feel like you're really in Tokyo, Persona 5 does a lot of things well with its graphic design. For example, when you're visiting your doctor Tai Takemi to buy medicines and healing items, you're greeted with some beautiful motion graphics, which remind you and make you feel like you're in a doctor's office buying medicine. The double helix is floating in the background, and Takemi's silhouette can be seen, reminding you you're shopping with her. Similarly, when shopping for weapons at the airsoft shop, the game will include similar motion graphics, but this time tailored to the owner of the airsoft shop UI. The screen looks like a fence, and the buying options resemble dog tags to immerse you in the world of weapon shopping. Of course, I have to mention the Velvet Room too. Since it's a jail in this game, the animations and motion graphics convey chains like the ones that literally bind you in the room and metaphorically in the overall game. This heuristic gets a pass, since these motion graphics and design choices really immerse you in the area that you're in and the world of Tokyo that the Persona 5 team has created as a whole. Heuristic number 3. User control and freedom. When it's easy for people to back out of a process or undo an action, it fosters a sense of freedom and confidence. Exits allow users to remain in control of the system and avoid getting stuck and feeling frustrated. Nielsen Norman Group. Like other JRPGs, Persona 5 has many save files that you can use. And these aren't just randomly implemented by the dev team, but are there to help the player. If, for example, you're hanging out with a fellow confidant and choose the wrong dialogue and don't get the desired amount of confidant points from that, you can easily reset the game from your last save point. But on a larger scale, hypothetically, imagine you're preparing for the next big palace and you've been continually saving on different save files just to be safe. You realize you did something you weren't supposed to, like maybe sacrifice an old persona you want to get back, or maybe romanced a girl who you don't want to have romanced. You can restart the game and load the specific save file in which you didn't do this and restart from there. It also helps that when you're loading a save file, it tells you the date and time as well as the location you had saved at, just to make things a little easier for you. Additionally, Persona 5 allows you to change the difficulty at any point in the game, allowing for more freedom if a player is having a hard time with the game. This can definitely come in handy with later bosses in the game. I'm going to give this a pass, since having multiple save files can really save a player from making a silly mistake and allow them to fix it, and flexible difficulty allows for players to stay in the game longer and have a much better time with it. Heuristic number 4. Consistency and standards. Jakob's law states that most people spend most of their time using digital products other than yours. Users' experiences with those other products set their expectations. Failing to maintain consistency may increase the user's cognitive load by forcing them to learn something new. So Persona 5 has two sets of stats. There are your persona stats and your social stats. The social stats are for the main character, which increase when doing tasks in the real world. And one set of your stats, your persona stats, are included for your personas in your compendium and for your teammates' personas as well. For a first-time player in the Persona series, it can be hard to juggle these two sets of stats. How are they separate? Do they link or correlate? If I focus on one and not the other, will it hinder my progress? This could easily be changed by calling the social stats social points or social goals, something in the vein of those two. With the term stats being used twice, it can be a bit confusing, and was to me when playing Persona 4 before playing Persona 5, since Persona 4 had these social stats and persona stats as well. On the bright side, consistency is seen when looking at button layouts. In Persona 5, most PlayStation control standards are used, such as X being the continue and select button, and circle being the cancel and back button. But these also stay consistent over the entirety of the game, such as the battle prompt buttons and command buttons all staying the same and not feeling awkward in any way. I'm gonna give this one a fair, since I personally think the naming conventions of the stats can increase the player's cognitive load, but the consistency of button layouts is a great factor in the overall experience. Heuristic number 5, error prevention. Good error messages are important, but the best designs carefully prevent problems from occurring in the first place. Either eliminate error-prone conditions or check for them and present users with a confirmation option before they commit to a selection. Nielsen Norman Group. There's a lot of dialogue in Persona 5, and players have the option to skip it. But when it comes to specific actions like initiating a hangout with a friend or fusing a set of personas, even if you skip the dialogue, your handy sidekick and companion cat, Morgana, or the twin wardens Caroline and Justine when fusing personas in the Velvet Room, are always there to make sure you are positive that you want to continue on with the task and don't slip up. Let's say you want to hang out with one of your friends and you scroll down through the dialogue and don't pay too much attention. Before the hangout initiates, Morgana will ask you if you're sure you want to hang out with that person. Similarly, when fusing personas, the twin wardens will ask you if you really want to fuse that persona or sacrifice it. This is even the case when entering mini-boss and boss rooms, where Morgana or other party members will ask if you're sure if you want to proceed or want to heal and prepare for the fight first. This truly eliminates mistakes and allows a bit more freedom when going through the game, allowing you as the player to make the right decision. I'm going to give this one a pass, as it allows for proper error prevention and makes sure you don't make choices that you don't want to make. Heuristic 6. Recognition rather than recall. Humans have limited short-term memories. Interfaces that promote recognition reduce the amount of cognitive effort required from users. Nielsen Norman Group. This heuristic can be seen in the battle menu. When you start a battle, the menu pops up in a flashy way, but this is different from other JRPGs. Each of your face buttons are assigned to a different action. Triangle for persona skills and changing personas, the square for items, circle to guard, X for melee attacks, L2 for options, and up on the D-pad for using your ranged weapon. The player does not have to memorize this at all, since it's visible in every single battle in the game. Also, another small thing is that when you're in the overworld or in a safe spot in the metaverse, on the bottom left of the screen will be some button prompts to remind you of things you can do, like triangle for your menu, square to check your text, R1 for your map and fast travel, the touchpad for the network, and the option button to save your game. Just so you as the player don't have to memorize these. I'm gonna give this heuristic a pass, since the developers remembered that people won't want to memorize all the button commands for battle and daily life in the game. Heuristic 7. Flexibility and efficiency of use. Flexible processes can be carried out in different ways so that people can pick whichever method works for them. I think by now you've understood that there's a lot to do in Persona 5, and that's where the game's flexibility lies. Honestly, you can go through the entire game without doing a lot of things if you choose to. If you just want to focus on battling, leveling up, and continuing the story, you can prioritize going into the palaces and mementos before focusing on any confidants or leveling up your social stats. And if you don't like hanging out with certain confidants, you can choose to entirely ignore them, and it won't adversely affect the narrative of the game. Though at the end of Palace Quests, you as the player must complete day-to-day activities till the story segments catch up to where you are in the game, which can be a little irritating to players who don't feel like doing confidants and social stats grinding. Another great addition to Persona 5 is fast travel, so you don't have to walk all the way around Tokyo just to get from one part of the region to another. All you have to do is press R1 on the overworld to open the map and choose where you want to go, and you're there almost instantly. I'll give this one a fair. It would have been a pass if not for the fact that you still have to do work on confidants and social stats even after you complete a palace on the first day. If something like the activity mechanic and the ability to skip forward time like in Fire Emblem 3 Houses was present, that might have been a bit more approachable to some players. Heuristic 8. Aesthetic and minimalist design. Interfaces should not contain information which is irrelevant or rarely needed. Every extra unit of information in an interface completes with the relevant units of information and diminishes their relative visibility. Nielsen Norman Group. Persona 5 has a wild, flashy, and colorful graffiti-like art style, which truly adds to the mood and tone of the game. This style truly makes you feel like a phantom thief and keeps you engaged in the game's narrative and gameplay. In my opinion, it's not distracting at all. The game's user interface is truly focused on the essentials, like of course the date and time, the maps on the screen, and of course in the battles the UI isn't intrusive and fits right in with the vibe of a tense yet flashy battle. Everything like the colors, the motion graphics, the typography, it all adds to the youthful, rebellious mood that the developers wanted the players to feel when playing this game. And I think it very much succeeds. This gets a pass from me, as Persona 5's art style, motion graphics, typography, colors, and overall graphic design do not hinder the experience, but significantly add to it. Heuristic 9. Help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. Error messages should be expressed in plain language, precisely indicate the problem, and constructively suggest a solution. Nielsen Norman Group. Persona 5 doesn't have error messages per se, but does lock you out of certain actions if some requirements are not met. For example, some early confidants require a certain amount of social stats to initiate their confidant events, like your friend An requires rank 2 kindness to initiate her second confidant event, and the airsoft owner EY requires rank 4 guts to initiate his first confidant event. Whenever this happens, the game doesn't give you a boring message just like, you must reach this rank to proceed. it's actually in the point of view of the main character himself. When you don't have the right amount of social stats, the player character himself has some dialogue that says, I should do this when I have more guts, or kindness, or proficiency. And it's said in many different ways. And once you do have the right amount of stats, the player will say something like, I feel like I have enough guts to hang out with this person, or kindness, or proficiency, or knowledge. It's a nice version of an error message that is a more interactive way of keeping the player immersed in the experience. Another small thing is that when you're in battle and you're out of SP or HP, or if it's too low to use a specific skill, that skill will be grayed out in your battle menu, telling you you can't use it without even giving you a prompt. I'm definitely giving this a pass, since these aren't even error messages, but still tell the player they can do something in a friendly, interactive, and non-intrusive way. Heuristic 10, Help and Documentation. Help and documentation content should be easy to search and focused on the user's task. Keep it concise and list concrete steps that need to be carried out. Persona 5 has a lot of tutorials. In the first 5 to 10 hours, the game stops you many times to explain things about the game, since there is a multitude of mechanics the player must understand and master. And these tutorials return throughout the rest of the game when new things are introduced, though they're not as abundant as they were in the beginning of the game. These tutorials are necessary, since the player can't really figure out these mechanics on their own, but I wish they weren't so abrupt and didn't bring a halt to the pacing of the game. A text box appears and tells you what you need to know, and the amount the player must read is a lot too. It's a little annoying, but still somewhat necessary. What's the best thing about this though, is if you don't care to read the tutorial and want to go through the game, you can always access the tutorials anytime from the pause menu and read those whenever you want. This is good, since the players might even forget some mechanics, since there are a lot introduced to the player throughout the game. I'll give this heuristic a fair, since it does bog down the experience, but it's nice that the players can access the tutorials at any time. So, that wraps it up for my heuristics analysis on Persona 5. Though I wanted to point out one last thing. What's great about analyzing heuristics for technology is that they're intertwined and sort of linked together. For example, heuristic number 3 and number 5 are similar since they're about preventing mistakes, slips, and errors, but in different ways, since one is an emergency exit and the other is preventing errors from happening in the first place. And number 1 and number 4 are similar in the sense that they're both about visibility of your current status and have it be simple enough for you not have to memorize it. This truly helps that all the heuristics come together to make interacting with a piece of technology, whether it be an app, a website, or a game, truly a great and memorable experience. As you can see, Persona 5 excels in nearly all of these heuristics. I truly recommend checking this game out. It's a fine work of art and one of my favorite video games of all time. Additionally, I'd like to give a big thanks to my friend and mentor, Cheenu, for giving me the idea for this video and helping me out with the script. He's a UX aficionado, and I really appreciate his help. And maybe I'll continue making heuristic videos for video games in the future. So for other games and other games I'm playing currently or have played in the past, so be on the lookout for those when they come out. So, what did you think? Do you think there are things I missed out in my analysis? Do you like analyzing and looking out for user experience in games? Have you played Persona 5? Sound off in the comments section below. And be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel, Niche Quick Pops, for more analysis on game design and user experience. I'm Niche Quick, signing off. Have a great day.